Hey, what's up, everybody? We're here with Eyal Amir, tuning in to us from Tel Aviv. Say hi, Eyal.
Hello.
So, Eyal is an amazing musician, and he's also a software engineer at Waves Audio, and he's contributed on a number of different plugins. He's done plugins for Waves. He's also done stuff with Infected Mushroom, and he has also worked with Jordan Rudess as well, who, if you don't know, is one of the greatest keyboard players in the world. So you've already lived like three lifetimes and done done so many amazing things. Some people would just wish for one of those things, to be a great musician, working with a world famous keyboardist, or working as a software engineer. And how old are you? You look like you're in your early 20s, maybe.
I wish.
So let's see. Where shall we start? Let's start just from the beginning. How you got into the music industry, where you started, and if you were coding during this time, if you were curious about those things, or if that's something that came along later. Can you just take us through your kind of career path?
Yeah, I started doing music, some time ago. It was about like, I don't know, 15 years ago,
Uh,
when I was in high school. And I was playing keyboards and I was writing music. I was really into composing. Uh,
was this stateside, or was this in Israel?
that was just here in Israel, just
Okay,
locally.
cool, cool.
Um, and from a very early age, or not early age, but from an early, but from my beginning in the music world, I was drawn to the technology. I was starting to look at software and see what's up. If we're producing something, or I was looking at a lot of notation software. And I was, checking out synthesizers. So I really liked the technology.
Hmm.
I wasn't programming or anything. I took maybe a couple of a few C lessons in high school, so I knew what a programming language was, and I kind of knew the syntax of that, but nothing more serious than that.
That's pretty crazy. Studying C in high school. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's not what you'd think. Like it's very basic. Like it's just like an introductory class. You get the basics of what how to build a sentence, how to do hello world, maybe do
Yeah.
some calculation of sorts. Like it's
Uh
not
huh.
it's not serious programming by any means.
Did it appeal to you back then, or did you just think like, oh, this is cool, but I could never see myself doing this? That's how it was for me, when way back in the day, when I was in high school, and I did like a short programming course, and I just thought like, yeah, this is cool, but I just never see myself doing anything like this. What were your thoughts at the time? Were you like really intrigued, or were you really kind of like, oh, okay?
Um, I thought at first that I was interested in it. Like the concept looked really cool of programming, and I had some even experiences in BASIC when I was smaller. So I knew that programming could be something cool.
Hmm.
But the way it was taught in school was very boring. It was all about the syntax. You had to
Hmm.
write your works on paper. You couldn't actually use a computer,
Hmm.
which I hated. Like I always felt like you would get a test, and I don't know, miss something about the pronunciation, and you miss closing the brackets or something, and you lose some points in the test. Like it felt very technical and not very creative.
Hmm.
Uh, so I I thought back then that it's probably not really for me.
Uh huh. Okay. So you were building. Did you make a link between at the time between like kind of synthesizers and keyboards, and okay, those are being programmed in C, or was there a link there that you knew that that was happening at some level, or or no?
No, I didn't know anything about it back then. Like back then, when I was in high school, I was just getting started in music. So to me, everything that happened during that time was just noise. I was into just listening all day and reading music theory books, and I was into using the music software. Like when I learned, Finale or Cubase or software that I would use, I would be super interested in learning the little bits of how it works in sense of how the user will do stuff, like how to customize everything and route MIDI. I love that aspect, but I didn't have any gateway to the making of it. I also didn't have anybody to talk to about it back then. Just some internet forums.
Okay. And so what happens then? So you're in high school, you're making music, you're making noise, and then where does it go from there?
So after high school, I went to a music college. I was studying, and I was just just working on my own little projects, and just whatever a young musician does. I was trying to form bands and record songs. At some point, I got more into engineering, so I opened up a little studio in Israel, where I started to produce stuff for others, and I also produced my my band there, just my band that's called Project RNL.
Okay.
So that band got a bit of following. So we did all these like funny videos, and those got some views and some attention on YouTube and everything. And while that was happening, I was getting interested a lot in technology. Like I was always downloading plugins and looking up whatever synthesizers were coming out and whatever processing plugins were coming out. So I was really into that side of things. But not on the creational side, but just on the user side. So I was always on forums, looking up gear slots or KVR or all these more tech oriented forums.
Yeah, so like kind of on the fringes of the still as a kind of music creator, but like on the fringes where that kind of line sort of meets with KVR.
Exactly. And then
Okay.
and then when I started to do these videos, I started to get some attention from music technology people too. I mean, I got in touch with all these musicians like Jordan and other people that we worked with at the time. But also some companies started to talk to us, and started to give us endorsements. I started to get an endorsement from Waves back then, and from Nord, and from these companies that I was using, and I was really into that world. Like I was really into trying to do demos of products and maybe get involved in the production from just being a beta tester for plugin or make presets for stuff that were coming out. So I started to do some of that work. Jordan had a few apps that he was working on.
Okay.
So I was really enjoying, helping him with stuff about that apps, both before the release and demoing it after the release. I started to get some gigs working at NAMM, just going there and showing products, and I was showing stuff for eye connectivity and for two notes engineering, and later on Nord. Like I was starting to get this kind of work.
Nice.
And
How did you meet Jordan?
Yeah.
Out of curiosity.
so Jordan, that's such a funny story. I was such a big fan. I mean, I am such a big fan of him and Dream Theater, and this is really music that changed my life. And when we were starting to make these videos, I kept telling my partner Ray back then, we got to get Jordan to see the videos. Got to get him to see the videos, and we would always go and post it on his Facebook page, and and nothing. He would never look at it. But then we made one video where I just bought an iPad back then, and I used his first app called MorphWiz as an instrument in one of the apps, and we put out that video, and somebody that worked with him sent it to him, so he got it, and he posted it on Facebook. He just shared it, and
Nice.
it was awesome. And I was blown away. And I was writing like in the comment section, like, "Wow, thank you so much!" And he sent me a message, and we started to chat. And we had really good chemistry, and we found out we both really like the same music, and we're both into. We both like Gentle Giant, and we both like classical music, and we both like all the technology side of things. And so we just said, okay, let's start working on something. Let's make a song.
Oh, cool. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
And when you used his app, was that a move that was that something that was just kind of a natural thing that you just kind of did, where you were using all different types of stuff, or was it more like, let me do this and this will really get really get his attention? Was there like a bit of like, okay, we're really trying to get his Jordan's attention here, let's use the app and see if that'll get his attention? Was it a bit of that, a little bit of both?
Definitely, I was hoping it will help,
Yeah.
but I didn't know for sure, because I've seen other people use his apps and don't get this feedback. But it was also just a natural thing of me just getting excited about this new technology that I just got, and trying it out and making sounds with it. Because I thought, okay, there's some chance he's gonna see it, but there's also a chance that it will just be a cool thing to do.
I mean, I think I'm going to key in on this for a second, like go aside. I think this keys in on a good thing for people that are really looking to get into a certain place, or looking to get into whether it's building a relationship with an artist or building a relationship with a company. And, I can say for myself that when I first started doing the audio programmer and everything, started doing juice tutorials, I was totally like thinking, like, one, I'm going to do the, I'm doing this to help people, but I'm not, I will admit freely that I was thinking, you know what? Juice aren't doing tutorials like this. I'm going to provide a resource here, and I'm going to provide something that's of value to this company, because in hopes of building this relationship with this company, and it took a while. It took like a good, probably 8-10 months, and then finally somebody from the Juice team contacted me, and they said, "Oh, we just want to let you know that we had a meeting and your name came up, and we just wanted to say we love your videos." And I was just like, I actually got goosebumps, like, oh my God. Like they've seen it. They've actually seen it. I didn't actually have the guts to actually post the videos on the Juice forum or anything, because I just thought, oh, they're just the members are just gonna rip me to shreds, because I don't really, my coding isn't amazing. But it was totally. But going back to what you were saying, that sometimes it's about providing value to. And in the form of, it's kind of the same thing with your situation with Jordan, in that, you provided something that is like useful content. And for the people out there that are watching, if you haven't seen any of Eyal Amir's videos, I would highly advise you to go check them out, because they're super like really cleanly produced, really high quality editing, really high quality sound. So it's really high quality content, and that so that it represents all those things, all those instruments, and everything that's happening in that video really well. And so yeah, it makes Jordan's app look good, so it would be natural that he would share something like that. So yeah, just something that I was thinking. Provide value, like for people that are looking to, if you're on the outside, you're looking to get in somehow, no matter what it is. Try to provide, and you're trying to build a relationship with somebody or some company. Provide value to them. That's the way to get in. So yeah, so that's my 2 cents. So did it. So then you did a song. I saw that you have a video where you did a song with Jordan.
Oh, we have
He
a,
was
we have a
like
lot
taking.
of songs together.
It was one where he took like a bite into an apple or something. I don't know if he actually even played on the video, but
Oh, he did. He did. He plays he has two parts in the song. One is
okay.
a very lengthy Ableton push solo,
Oh wow,
and
nice.
and also he has the classic apple eating part.
That's great. That's great. Great. So okay, so you did a song with Jordan. Okay, let's keep going with the story till we get to the coding part.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to bore you with everything I've done, but yeah, but I was working as a musician. At some point, I was moving to the States and doing more of this kind of work. My main gig for a few years was making tutorial videos for Mac Pro Video,
Yeah.
which is an amazing company that does tutorials on a very high level. I was very I'm still very proud to have been able to be a part of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, your quality, like I was saying to you, Eyal and I had a conversation about 2 weeks ago, and I was saying that just about the quality, and this is something that I would like to step up for my channel is, because I just kind of hack it together, but that the quality of the content is really high, and you can see that there's a lot of you've spent a lot of time on the editing and just putting everything together. So props to you for that.
But I can say the same thing about your channel because when we talked, like first thing I told you is, oh yeah, I've seen all your videos.
I know that to me is like astounding. It's really incredible to hear that. I mean, especially uh, with your position working at a profession, one of the biggest plugin makers in the world, and that you've been following the videos. That is just really cool. It's really awesome. And over there and being over there in Tel Aviv and seeing the people that have kind of come in from around the world that have been influenced by the videos has been really kind of overwhelming for me. And so, yeah, very much appreciated. I appreciate that. Cool. So yeah. So you moved to New York for a little while. You were doing the tutorial videos, and were those musician videos as well? Music tutorials, keyboard tutorials, or were those other things?
So it was very diverse. Some of it was more technology oriented, like about drum producing in Cubase or editing or mixing or something like that. But some of them were more about the composition side and arrangement and music theory. I did some with Jordan about that I produced with him about using the Ableton Push. The first one when it just came out. It was very diverse. I like doing kind of all aspects of this.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you've kind of got this kind of jack of all trades type of appeal to yourself. There, you can clearly edit video on a professional type of level. You got sound engineering background, plus you could give tips on composition, obviously from a musician's background, and now coding. And wow, that's just like I said, it's just a lot to pack into one kind of career. So that's really cool. So what happened? So what happened next?
So to make a long story short,
I
a while
I
later,
learned C++. End of story.
yeah, yeah, Pretty much.
The end.
Yeah, because
Yeah. Now go ahead.
what happened was at first I got a side gig for Waves, and I was working for Waves before as doing marketing videos. But years later, they called me to do some work and to bring ideas for a new sampler product. And at first, they just basically asked me to provide samples, just provide a sample library for all kinds of products. And as I was thinking about the concept for this sample library, I started to tell them, hey, I have this idea that if we kind of let the sampler be smarter than just a straight up sampler that triggers samples on a piano. It will actually
Because wasn't it for a bass guitar? It was for a bass guitar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have like we were discussing the other day. You have a lot of what would you call that? I know I'm lost for the word, but when you're playing a bass guitar, you're getting a lot of slides and a lot of kind of inflections, I guess is the best word I can think of for it at the moment, that are very particular to that instrument, aren't they? And that's one of the challenges when you're creating a sampler instrument, isn't it? That you can have like a tuba and I'm like, but how do you make it really sound like a tuba where a person's actually playing through the horn? Yeah. So go ahead. I keep interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, that was exactly that. Like, how do you? So I was telling the people at Waves, hey, I have this idea. I can give you a great sample library, but also I want to make it something more. I worked along with Or Lubianiker, who's the bass player for my band, Project RNL. And so we worked on this concept of something that has the mechanics of the player and not just the sound. So it knows how a player would do something, not just how it would sound. Like it would know how his hands would actually work on the instrument.
I see.
So we conceptualized this, and I brought it up to Waves, and they said, "Wow, this is a cool idea, but who's going to program it?"
When you say conceptualize it, did you write it down on paper, or how did so this was written on paper? Okay.
Yeah. Or and I literally made we call it the book of the product. So we just wrote it down in a simple language of, if you had done this, this would happen. If you do this, this would happen.
Okay.
Just in plain English, basically. And as I was talking to Waves about who's going to program it, I started thinking, hey, if I cannot explain to myself this logic, why wouldn't I be able to explain it to a computer? This may be a naive way of thinking about it, but that's how I saw it. So I told him, look, why don't you give me an idea? Why don't you give me a chance? I want to try programming it. And they were a bit skeptical. I kind of sat in my hole for a few months and basically just learned C++ from scratch. And I was just all day, every day, opening tutorials, looking at stuff, reading books, reading forums, reading anything, calling people I know for questions. And I did all this work, and after a few months, we actually had a prototype that was doing what we had decided on.
Incredible. And was that built in a framework, or was that how was that built? Can you be more specific?
Yeah.
Can you tell us the trade secrets?
Yeah. So at the beginning, like the way I worked on it at the beginning was just with nothing, just as a console application. So I just said, without any MIDI, any audio, anything. I was just saying I was going to give it an input in the form of text, and then I wanted to see what was coming out on the other side. and I would, and it would like I would talk to Or about these things, or the bass player, and I would ask him, hey, if if I had given you this sequence of notes to play, how would you do it? And he'd sit down and say, oh, I'll play it first here, then here, then here, and we would check to see if this is what would actually come out on the Logic. We would compare, and he would give me all these suggestions on, oh, well, if I go from here to here, maybe I want this to happen, so maybe we can add a parameter for this mode and this mode. So we just did it using plain data, no libraries, nothing, just nothing but the standard library in C++. But then we actually wanted to get some audio happening, so I started. At first, what we just did, we just loaded up the entire sampler to a regular sampler, like a Logic EXS, and we and then I started using this internal software that we use at Waves to get a module that will do the MIDI stuff, just the MIDI information. So instead of getting text, it would just get MIDI notes, pass them around, and puts it out to the sampler. And this is where we're starting to use our own proprietary stuff that we have at Waves, which is not it's not general frameworks, but it's not too different from stuff that's out there. So, but so it's just basically.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah. So it was just an interface. So.
Sorry, my dog.
No.
Yeah.
No problem. So
Go ahead.
Yeah. So it wasn't anything special. It was just a framework that we're using that's developed by this guy Jeff McClintock. So he created this modular system for us. I was using his system, and I was just making MIDI modules, try to set up this proof of concept. And later on, I was, as I was getting more confidence, I was actually starting to do all the audio processing parts of it and dive a bit more into this world, basically.
That is a really interesting journey that you've taken with that plugin. So it started off as a regular C++ application that started from scratch, no frameworks, just the core language. And then what you did, if I understand you correctly, is that you described the behavior of, basically it was just kind of MIDI note names but in text, not the actual sound. And that you basically started creating the behavior of constructing the behavior through text, not through actual sound. Sorry about my dog; she always does this. And then it got to where you started using this sort of framework from the Waves internal framework, where you're able to kind of if I'm understanding you correctly, kind of higher level modules that you can kind of connect to each other. Is that right? Or is it something more like Juice where you're kind of constructing more from scratch, or which way is that? Or somewhere in the mix of both?
It's actually both. Like it allows you both do the lower level stuff like audio processing or signal processing or MIDI processing. So it allows you this freedom. But it also allows you some higher level way of connecting different modules. So for example, if I want to use an existing Waves technology, which there's a lot of, so I can just say, oh, give me this technology. I can just put it somewhere in the signal flow, and just use it as is. If I want to use an existing plugin or a piece of a plugin.
Wow, that's really cool. So it's like kind of like Max MSP in a way. That part where you can and then would you just be able to like kind of take the controls that, like, let's say that it's a filter, like a Waves filter. Could you just take and just like attach a UI knob to that and say, okay, that controls the cutoff now, and that's just my filter? Wow, that is so cool.
Yes,
That is
yes,
really cool.
that's exactly it. And the good thing of working for Waves is all this technology is available to use. Still, the core of the product is stuff that we developed from scratch.
Yeah.
But Waves have so many talented R&D researchers and developers and DSP developers. So it was good that we could also say, oh, we don't have to build an entirely new compressor because the technology for a compressor is really polished at Waves, for example.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. That's incredible. That's really cool. So then you started, yeah. So then you basically were able to import the behavior that you had from the prototype. Then it's just changing it to sounds, taking note names, applying them to MIDI notes, and then did it did it seem to work pretty much like once you got everything in place? Did it work pretty much the way that you expected, or did you run into a lot of different kind of things that you hadn't thought about before, or what happened then?
Yeah, it was a process because I didn't have that much or any experience. So definitely we always run into bugs that you weren't expecting, especially when you talk about the world of communicating your audio and MIDI with the host. So the hosts can do all kinds of things that you're not expecting.
Yeah.
The behavior is not very linear. The host can send you a note on, but never send you the note off. The host can change tempos. The host can change time signatures. And the host also might do it a bit differently. So it's not guaranteed that Cubase will work the same way as Pro Tools or Ableton Live. So there was a lot that happened at the development to actually make it a product on many levels, because we had to build a GUI for it. We had to build a system, of automations and all kinds of other stuff. But the good thing of how we've done it, which I still think is a really good way of programming in general, something that I've learned to be a bigger believer of over time, is like if you work with higher levels of abstraction and you don't touch the data directly, and you say, okay, I'm not going to touch MIDI. It's from this point. I'm just going to touch my own data format, and then all you have to do is at some point say, here's MIDI. Let me translate it to my data format, and at the end, I'm going to translate it back to MIDI. But I don't if you work with something like like any kind of raw data, just MIDI or user input, or anything like that. Then what happens is your code is really tied to this other form of data, and then it's very easy to get bugs because it would not expect as you would. But otherwise, you just have this one translation point. You have this one place where this, because MIDI is not very descriptive style of data. It's just it's just an array of unsigned chars. It's just and each of those 3 bytes of a regular MIDI message is just is combining more than one piece of information. The first byte will give you the channel and the type, and the other type and the other one will give you the note number, etc. So there's all this information that's it's very raw. Like you can't get a lot out of a MIDI note number. But whereas with when in the data structures that we've built for this product, then we know a lot more. We also know what happened before, what we're expecting to happen later, all kinds of user settings. So there's maybe press the sustain pedal, maybe press other stuff. So we build this big state that's in our language now, and that's controllable by us in terms of when it changes, how it changes, what's the limits of ranges,
Yeah. Wow, that must be a pretty big code base too. Because do you have to account for every kind of situation, every kind of instance, like you were saying? Wow. Yeah.
If you want, I can just show it to you, because now that we have this product out
Oh
there.
yeah, that was a perfect time. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yep. By the way, we've been sharing screens the whole time, so your face is small. I hope you don't mind that for the final video.
Oh, what I'm filming also has my screen in a separate, but my face, sorry, in a separate video,
Okay.
so you can
Great.
then put it whatever size you want.
Okay, great. Awesome.
But it doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
so this is it. It's called the bass slapper.
Yeah.
Now so the idea is that you can see there's the fretboard of a guitar,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you just click anywhere on the fretboard, so it actually plays a sample that's correct with this place in the neck. It's not just a generic, or it does just. We don't just have, let's say, the one sample for this E. We also have the open E,
Yeah.
right? It's the same pitch but sound completely different.
Yeah. Is that round robin, or is that or is how is that happening?
Okay, so it's not. We also have a round robins for each of the samples. Like each sample is recorded multiple times, multiple velocity layers, and all that. But one of the things we conceptualized was that one of the things that makes a bass instrument sound consistent is actually about the limitation of your hand. So let me show you. Let me show you what I mean. So I wonder if we can. Okay, so I wonder if you can also see my hands playing. I don't know if you can see them. Okay, so if you play this note, which is the open E, and I'm just gonna keep going up the notes, playing legato. See, I'm getting legato samples,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When you go up, you get a hammer-on. When you go down, you get a pull-off sample, which would make sense because as you can see on the screen, they're both on the same string, right? So it would make sense that a player would do that. However, what would happen if you try to go higher up, right? Let's see what happens. So you see, I get the next note on the next string, and that's because a player's hand can't really move that far. Like if it would be really hard if you try to stretch your hand from here all the way up to here. Like you got to have a really big hand, and even then, it's almost impossible. So one of the things that makes the bass playing sound contextual is because usually people play around a certain spot in your guitar, what we call a position.
Yeah.
So if I'm just going to go up the notes here, this will get me to the next note, and the next note will also trigger a small release note from the previous string, because physically a string also is only being released when you're changing it. So you get this effect. You see, there's kind of a tiny second where both strings are played at the same time. That also happens in the actual string. Like that's because bass players can't just play legato like a synthesizer, and just it's physically impossible because they have to change the string. So if I'm just gonna keep playing. And so it kind of knows how to position what you do automatically according to the position, according to the playing position, and it's also in a polyphonic way. So we have actually real polyphonic legato. So for example, if I'm just holding this note here, and I'm gonna play way up, like here, you see. So because it's a different string, I can play legato on each of those separately. So this would be legato. This would be legato. Right? So we actually get the real polyphony of the instrument. Like the resonance is real, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like it's never a fake, like the fake sound where you just play a bunch of notes that can't be played together on the real instrument. So the cool thing is this works here, but you can also move your hand around, right? So let's say I'm gonna. So this is this is what we call the open position, the zero position. So let's just go up and hear the same sequence of notes. So it's completely different, right? So everywhere I would play it, it would actually sound completely different according to where your hand is, which is very true to how the instrument works. Because bass players they don't just say, "Oh, I'm just gonna pick every note by its sound." They're saying something like, "I'm gonna play here right now." So that's a really nice feature of this, and also a big part of slap playing is not notes; it's just percussive playing of sorts. So we have this on the instrument. So I can just do this. Kind of mute my note, and if I keep this key pressed, it's gonna keep muting what I'm playing. So if I'm gonna play, let's do this. So it knows where I'm playing and gives me the correct percussive. It's not just a random sample.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And what was I going to ask? So, in terms of programmatically,
Yeah.
would that, so I'm assuming that this would be where it's like you were saying, it's looking at the note before, or so when you have one note that's held down on the same string, that's just passing a parameter down the line as the user's playing. Okay.
Yeah, and it's not just and just a single parameter. It's a big chunk of information because we have to know what is the user holding right now, like where his hands are on the keyboard. But we also have to know the state of a real instrument, like because we have to know. Okay, so just to give you an example, if you're just going to play this note, and I'm going to play a note going up from that on the same string, right? So the instrument knows to give me a legato sample, and when I let go, needs to know to re-trigger it on the same string. So the instrument needs to know what to do, and this would be different if I in all kinds of playing modes. So like you can really customize your playing in many ways. Like we have all these modes. Like for example, this mode called adaptive position. That means that if I'm going to go up, see, the hand will move itself with the notes I'm playing. So in this mode, you actually have to keep more information. Like you have to know where am I going from? Am I going to the right side of the fretboard or the left side? You have to know more information. Like you can't just say I have one note and I'm processing the one note. You need to know, and you always have to look at the state and say what's happening. Is that physically possible to do? And so on and so forth.
Wow, awesome! And how long did it take you? And was it Uri, Ora? How long did it take the two of you to build this? I mean, I know you got to have time for UI and for all of the other things, but just in terms of the core application, how long did it take you?
Yeah, so the main you can say that the development for this took I want to say about a year and a half, or a bit more than a year and a half. It wasn't consistent because there's all kinds of back then we were also touring, and Waves also were not sure at some points they wanted to do these kind of instruments. So they were at first like because I wasn't working full time there, so it was on and off project for some time until we decided that it's good enough. We really want to move forward with it and finish it, and from then it was from when we started to work on it full time, it was just a few months and it just came out.
Wow, really cool, great work.
Thank you very much. It's really deep. Like if you go to all the sound effect stuff and how it all kind of talks together with one another. You have a bunch of key switches and sample and one shot samples and slides, and because the idea is that what we always had in mind is how can we get somebody to play with it without doing a lot of programming, in the sense that the player wouldn't have to do too much in the sense of programming his keys to do something. Like we wanted
Yeah,
people
yeah.
to just be able to play.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely a drawback that I see in a lot of instruments like this is that you have a lot of preparation time just trying to figure out how to actually get it to sound like a bass player or sound like a real instrument, and that by the time you've gotten done with the preparation, you've kind of lost your idea more or less. So that's really cool that you've developed this with that in mind. Wow. And the pedals, are those separate Waves plugins on their own, or were they developed specifically for this project?
Yeah, they were done specifically for this project by Or and I, and but however, in some of those we do use existing technology. Like just to give you an example, the compressor is that we have here is something that's using a compression technology that existed at Waves, but we customize it. So it's not how you would get it in the box. It's different. Like it's not gonna. So it's been tweaked for this particular instrument. Same goes for each of those. Almost each of those pedals. Like we never took a plugin as is.
Wow, nice. And so how did that work? Like let's go back to the compressor for a second. So you got the core algorithm. What made you decide to that okay, this needs tweaking? Was it that you did comparisons with real guitar hardware guitar compressors and thought, well, this doesn't quite sound the same, or how did that process work?
Yeah, you know that all Lubianiker, the bass player, he's a very he's a professional bass player with a lot of experience. So what we had done, we connected it in a way where you could actually use the pedal board in just with his regular bass, and we would
Yeah.
actually compare, and he would say, oh, my real pedal is different. I have a different range on the threshold or something like that. Like he would say, I'm expecting something else here. I'm expecting a different kind of attack or a different kind of overdrive if it's overdrive. Like so, we would match and design things so that it would match up with with our ears and his experience of how he's expecting to get it. We didn't want just to put stock studio plugins that are generic in this, because that would be just a waste, because everybody can use their own studio plugins.
Yeah, yeah.
You could open this and after it in the chain just have a plugin, but we wanted to have a nice customizable experience so that it's fun to play specifically with this instrument with.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Great. Okay. Is there anything that we've missed on with this that you'd like to cover?
Yeah, this instrument is very deep. Mainly all the logic stuff. There's a bunch that goes on. I don't want to go too deep into it, but it's there's a lot of this instrument is really a lot about interaction and there's different legato modes that will force you on the same string if you're playing. So it's very much like it's very much something to dive into. I don't want to
Yeah.
go ahead and just go over all the features, but there's a bunch.
Yeah. It looks like a total solution that I've never really seen another bass guitar plugin like this one where it's kind of presented as a total solution. I mean, you have an EQ, you have different amp features that are just for the bass itself, and then you have a whole bunch of pre and post a suite, an effect suite that you have that you can select from. That's all just within that plugin itself, plus all the other options that you pointed out. Yeah, you've really gone deep with this. You must be quite proud, for this to be your first really big C++ project, right? This is like your first real big project, wasn't it?
Yep, yeah, definitely, and also this was a fascinating project on an artistic level, because I really find programming to be very similar to making music in that sense. Like it's all about conceptualizing and kind of looking at the details of your idea. And so this project was really like that, because it was all about, discovery and back and forth with, users and testers and product managers. And for me, it was also very exciting because I was learning all these stuff, because I was learning good practices, because one of the things you immediately realize is that you can't just write your code in a very straightforward and messy way, because some bugs are going to come back and you're going to have to read through that code. And so at first, my first draft was very messy and huge functions, and everything was in the same place, and everybody was touching everybody's other public members, and so state would just change, and it would be and because the logic is so complicated, it would be impossible to reason about. Like it was, we would get a bug report saying, hey, when we play this sequence of notes, we get this stuck note, and it would be almost impossible to know what can cause this. Like it would be nested so deep in some function.
Oh man, yeah, that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, and so it was good for me, because then I learned a lot about code quality, because I learned that I can't just say, here's a piece of code, it works, take it out there. You have to sit down, you have to refactor it so that it's readable, not just as you're writing it, but also when you're reading it, a month later trying to fix a bug. And the more it's harder to read and to understand, the more there are probably bugs in there that you haven't found yet.
Absolutely. Well, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that with us. So we're getting up to about an hour on this video. I think we should probably maybe break off at this point and bring you back for like a part 2, where you could show us your infected mushroom plugin or some of the other projects you worked on. So you had the infected mushroom plugin. What else have you worked on?
So the infected mushroom plugin made by the group Infected Mushroom and a company called Polyverse. That was an awesome project. We can spend a lot of time working on that, which is actually made with Juice. So that was my experience learning Juice. I specifically sat down for a while, learned it during the development. I didn't do the entire plugin. I just did the GUI parts, but the GUI parts had a lot of interest on their own, so it would be fun to talk to. So, awesome. So it was called Gatekeeper. So that's a great plugin. I did work on another Waves plugin that was very successful, called Shep's Omnichannel, that we did with Andrew Sheps, the famous producer, mixing engineer. So that was basically a channel strip plugin, but it was unique in the sense that it allowed you not just to change the order of the different strips in the channel, but you could also add any Waves plugin into the channel. So you can say, hey, I have the preamp at the beginning, and right after that, maybe I want put H reverb or any other Waves plugin that's available, and maybe maybe only then I want the internal EQ of the channel. So it would be a very fun and intuitive way to because you can make really complicated presets. Like you can say, here's a preset that has everything that I want in it, basically. So it was a very difficult and rewarding project. And other than that, I have about 3 other plugins that are will be coming out in the next few months or so. I can't talk to you that much about those, but hopefully very soon they'll come out and we can discuss them.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Yeah, well, we'll definitely have to bring you back for a part 2, and we'll go through the infected mushroom plugin, the Gatekeeper. I love that name. Cool. So let's go ahead and wrap up here. Thanks again, Eyal, for joining us and for sharing that with us. That was a really incredible plugin, and it really it really taught me a lot in terms of things that I need to think about if I were to build an instrument like that, about trying to get the particulars of the behavior, and different ways that those things can be passed around, and things that I'm going to need to take into consideration in the future, if I ever do any project like that. So yeah, I learned a lot there. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll definitely we'll schedule a part two, and where we can keep pushing forward.
Sounds great.
Cool.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. I'm gonna stop the video here.
Thank you.
Um, thanks a lot, and we will see you soon.